I wish that I had a better intro, or better subjects to talk about today, I guess. But today I'm gonna go hit arms real quick, weigh in. I just pinned some RETA, so we are on week 3 of this now, and I'm gonna report how I'm feeling and some stuff like that. All right. Alright, as we get ready to hit this gym session, let's talk game a little bit on the RETA. I started out doing 2.5 mgs once a week, just injecting abdomen insulin needle. The first week was great after I got over the mild nausea and stuff. Second week felt pretty good. I have been seeing weight coming off. I'm feeling good. I will say the second week, I didn't feel as much of the appetite suppression. Maybe I don't know. I'm not really sure, quite frankly, but I didn't really feel the appetite suppression nearly as much. So I went ahead and, when I pinned this morning, upped my dosage to 4 milligrams. And we'll see how that goes, but let's go hit arms. I'm gonna weigh in, and then we can talk some deeper stuff when I'm done. I want to highlight a couple things. So weight-wise, I weighed in at 234, which is up just a touch from where I was on my week 1 weigh-in. My week 1 weigh-in, I weighed in at 233.5. And I think it's important to, really be honest about kind of what was going on outside of just the RETA. So for the first week, I really was in tune with complete sobriety. My diet was on point, my water intake was on point, and I lost 7 pounds relatively quickly. I imagine a lot of that was water weight, but nonetheless I saw results. And then this second week, as I kind of fell off a little bit, tapered off on some things, I kind of remained where I was at. My diet still has not been bad by any means, but my decision making when it comes to snacks and stuff like that has just been, questionable for sure. So I don't think it's necessarily a reflection on the RETA. I think it's a reflection on, my decisions. And so moving forward, I'm recommitting to myself this week to really hunker down and track my macros, specifically protein, and then, because the biggest thing that I don't want to do is lose muscle mass while I'm on RETA. So it's important to me to still be hitting close to that 200 grams per day of protein while I'm still in this, fairly large calorie deficit. I've been letting myself eat almost as much as I can, as long as it's, heavy protein and not processed, anything like that. So the only things that I'm eating is I'm eating like a lentil bean type pasta noodle that has a minor amount of carbs, but also is packed with protein, fiber, all that jazz. Salads. I am letting myself have some fruits, bananas, apples, protein shakes, just because although the protein quality isn't as high in protein shakes as it is in real food, I think it's a good way for me to be able to pack down 30-40 grams of protein, without getting overly stuffed. But it's tough to eat, it's tough to get food down. You feel like you're chewing it for 8 hours in order to get through a meal. On that note, let's also and this video may seem kind of boring, but I do want to just open up the line of communication on this, because this is one of my primary goals. I think alcohol is the worst thing for a young man specifically to incorporate into their lives, especially on a consistent basis. And I'm going to break down, a lot of the whys. I want to get into kind of the science behind it and how I think it affects guys and just the way that they interact and production levels. It's not like this weekend I even was getting plastered or drunk for that matter. I had maybe 7-8 drinks total split amongst 2 days, but I'm lagging in the mornings. I'm not sleeping as well. Physically, I'm not as dialed in. Mentally, I'm not as motivated. Kind of sluggish. And so it's just one of those things where it's not even necessarily the effects the alcohol has the night of or whenever you're drinking that I think is the killer for young men. I just think that the side effects and things that it brings with it can be crippling for young men that are really trying to separate themselves and do big things. I think when we talk about booze and alcohol, I think it's the most dangerous drug, right? Just because of how socially acceptable it is. We've gotten to a point where it seems that nearly every outing that you go on or public events or anything like that, there's always alcohol involved. So it's so readily accessible. It's so publicly accepted, right? We look at a lot of other drugs and stuff like that, and it's not socially acceptable for that. But with alcohol, we don't really frown on it as much. And so I think something that I challenge, a lot of young men, and myself included, when I started this, I had, limited alcohol use as one of my goals and one of the necessary things. But I genuinely don't think, for me at least, I can separate limited alcohol use and consistent recreational alcohol use. I don't think my brain can distinguish between those. From today on out, I'm making a complete sobriety pledge for myself for, I want to say at least the end of the year. I'll talk about my history with alcohol at a later date as well. But I think at least until the end of the year right now, I'm going to pledge, and that's, it's October, November, December, so we have 2.5 months. I'm going to pledge to be sober and kind of report back on how it's affecting, my mood and my sleep and my production and how I'm doing at work. And I'll get back to you guys on that. But I just pulled up to a meeting with a tenant that's moving into one of the properties that I manage. So I will touch base with y'all later. Just got done with that client meeting, went to the store, came back, and now I am just getting some chicken prepped up, gonna bake. But while I'm doing that, I think it's a good time for me to talk a little bit more, there's better lighting, a little bit more in depth about booze and everything else that I talked about earlier. So I filmed this yesterday when I was cooking chicken, but then I realized that my focus was completely whacked and you couldn't see me very well at all. So I am just gonna do a part 2 of this real quick, and this one's gonna be pretty short, but I really want to be clear on kind of the baseline premises of why I think alcohol is so negative and why I think it's key, and I am making a call to action for more and more young people to stay away from it completely. Because here's the thing. As young men specifically, we should be competing to be a part of the top 1%, right? And that requires 100% of ourselves, 110% of ourselves consistently, right? And I think I talk about how consistency means a whole lot more than perfection. And when I think back to times involving alcohol or anything like that, one of the biggest things that it does is it puts you in a state where you're not at your 100%, which in turn leads to you falling off on consistency, you falling off on being competitive, you giving up valuable time. when you could be focused on, you know, improving your social skills, reading more, learning more, being more educated, becoming more fit. I just think there's a whole lot of time that gets wasted, and in the moment with drinking, and then like I was saying earlier, I mean, the day after, you know, when you have brain fog, or you're not as productive, or you don't sleep as well, or your body's not getting the recovery it needs, or you're drinking, you know, the extra calories that you really don't need to include into your diet. And so I think it's key, and for me, now more than ever, I'm going to make it a point to myself that sobriety needs to be at the top of my priority list. So today be day through 3. I drank, like I said, I was at my buddy's house on Sunday, so today is Wednesday, and today's day 3. But we're gonna really try to put this into play, and I'm gonna try to track it. I'm not exactly sure how, but this is, you know, above all my other goals that I'm gonna start setting in regards to routines and consistency stuff. Is key that, you know, as we focus on these things, we're looking at what I'm gonna be doing, and also what I'm not going to be doing. Because I think the most successful people in the world are not that much different. And I heard, and I don't know who said it, but a long time ago he said, when you look at successful people, it's not a matter of the things that they do or partake in, it's a matter of the things that they abstain from and keep out of their life. You know, whether that's porn or alcohol or drugs, or for young men, a lot of women. You know, I think these are all things that are distractions. I think they're all things that are not benefiting your life, and I think they're things that hold us back. And so I think it's key that we start to dial in on, you know, the habits that we exclude just as much as the habits we include. I appreciate y'all being with me. This one was a little bit more of a vulnerable one, but like I said, this is going to be the point of this channel moving forward. So I look forward to getting on this sober journey, this complete sober journey, and seeing what I'm able to do. Alright, peace. Step 1. Sorry, I thought I wrapped this video up, but I just found this in my freaking room, so guess we're gonna crack a cold one last time for the boys, you know? Fuck yeah.